What is that doing near my food?
Victor Ashton shoved the plate back.
Sir, your order.
Shut your mouth! I didn't pay $300 to have some black girl breathe on my steak.
His men laughed. 5 of them. Loud.
I can get another waiter if...
Another waiter? Honey, you shouldn't even be in this building. You smell like the bus you rode in on.
More laughter. Someone at the next table looked away. Tanya Brooks said nothing, just stood there, tray steady, eyes level. Victor caught that look. He stopped laughing.
Oh, you got something to say?
He stood.
You think you're tough?
He stepped into her space.
Prove it.
Within 60 seconds, Victor Ashton would be flat on his back, and the woman holding the tray would be the reason why. Bellini's sat on the corner of Mulberry and Grand, in the heart of Little Italy, Manhattan. White tablecloths, candlelight, wine bottles are older than most of the staff. It was the kind of place where a single entree cost more than some people's rent, and everyone who ate there knew exactly who owned the block. The Ashton family. Not on paper. Never on paper. But every restaurant owner, every shop clerk, every landlord within 6 blocks understood one simple truth. You paid Victor Ashton, or you closed your doors. Tanya Brooks had worked at Bellini's for 19 months. She arrived at 4 every afternoon, tied her apron, polished the glasses, and disappeared into the rhythm of service. She was good at disappearing. She'd been trained for it. 2 years ago, Tanya Brooks didn't exist. Her real name was Tiana Blackwell. Agent Tiana Blackwell, DEA Undercover Division. For 14 months, she had lived inside Dominic Ashton's inner circle, Victor's older brother, the man who ran one of the largest narcotics pipelines on the eastern seaboard. She played a role, ate at their tables, laughed at their jokes, memorized every name, every drop point, every dollar amount. When the raid came, it was clean. Dominic Ashton got 25 years federal. 14 of his men went down with him. The pipeline collapsed overnight. And Tiana Blackwell vanished. The U.S. Marshals gave her a new name, a new Social Security number, a new life. They offered her relocation to Montana, Oregon, somewhere quiet. She picked New York, Manhattan, 12 blocks from where Dominic used to hold court. Her handler, Agent Phil Dawson, told her she was crazy. Hide in plain sight, she said. Nobody hunts where they already live. So Tanya Brooks became a waitress. She kept her head down, smiled at customers, took orders, wiped tables. The kind of person you look through, not at. But every night, after her shift, she locked her apartment door in Brooklyn and trained. Krav Maga drills in the living room, strikes against the heavy bag hanging from the ceiling beam, footwork patterns on the kitchen tile. Not because she expected trouble, because her body wouldn't let her stop. 14 months undercover had wired her nervous system to stay ready. Sleep light, react fast, trust no one. She had one friend at Bellini's, Elena Watts, a fellow waitress, 26, loud, warm, the kind of person who talked to strangers on the subway and meant it. Elena didn't know Tanya's past. She just knew Tanya was quiet, reliable, and never talked about herself. "You're like a ghost," Elena once said over after-shift drinks. No Instagram, no family photos, no drunk stories, nothing. Tanya smiled. Some people are just boring. Nobody's that boring. The restaurant manager, Marco Sullivan, was a different kind of aware. He'd hired Tanya without a full background check because she showed up on time, worked double shifts without complaint, and never caused problems. But he noticed things, the way she scanned the room when she entered, the way she positioned herself with her back to the wall, the way her hands never shook, even when a customer screamed in her face. He didn't ask questions. In Little Italy, Not asking questions was a survival skill. Then there was Victor Ashton, 38 years old, tailored suits, cold smile. He'd stepped into his brother's empire the week Dominic went away and had spent 2 years trying to prove he deserved it. He was smarter than Dominic in some ways, more careful with the money, more strategic with the politics. But he was crueler. Dominic had rules. Victor had appetites. And Victor had an obsession. Somewhere out there was a ghost, an informant, a traitor, the person who had destroyed his family's legacy. He'd spent 2 years and over $300,000 trying to find them. Every lead went cold. Every trail ended at a sealed federal file. The ghost was pouring his wine every Friday night. He just didn't know it yet. It started on a Friday. Victor walked in at 9 with 5 men. Nicky, the loudest, always first through the door, and 4 others who never spoke unless Victor told them to. They took the corner booth. Their booth. No reservation needed. No one ever sat there on Fridays. Tanya drew the short straw. She approached with menus. Professional smile. "Good evening, gentlemen. Can I start you with—" "Hold on." Victor raised a hand. He looked at her, then at Marco behind the bar. "Marco, you know I love this place, but when did you start hiring off the street corner?" Marco said nothing. He polished a glass and looked at the floor. "I'm your server tonight," Tanya said. "Our specials are—" "I didn't ask for specials. I asked why you're standing here." Victor picked up a cloth napkin, held it over his nose. "You people have a smell, you know that? Like wet concrete and government housing." Mickey slapped the table, laughing. The couple at the next table stared at their plates and said nothing. Tanya's jaw tightened. 1 second. Then it passed. "Would you like a moment to decide? What I'd like is a waiter who doesn't make me lose my appetite." He tossed the menu at her. It hit her chest and dropped to the floor, pages bent. Everyone in the room saw it. Nobody said a word. "Pick that up. And bring me the Barolo, the 2012. Don't touch the label with your fingers. I don't want grease on it." She bent down, picked up the menu, straightened her back. "Right away, sir. And smile when you say it. You're lucky to be in this room. Most places I know wouldn't even let you park the cars." She smiled. It cost her something she wouldn't get back. Elena caught her in the kitchen. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "That was disgusting. You should tell Marco." Marco heard everything. He didn't move. Tanya poured the Barolo with steady hands. "It's one night. It'll pass." It didn't pass. The following Friday, Victor was back. Same booth, same men, same waitress. And this time, he brought an audience. 2 women in designer dresses who laughed at everything he said, especially the parts about the help. The second Friday was worse. Victor arrived with 8 people. The usual 5 men, plus 2 women and a man Tanya hadn't seen before. Younger, slick hair, expensive watch. The kind of person who filmed everything on his phone for content. "There she is," Victor announced as Tanya approached. "My favorite pet." The women laughed. The man with the phone held it up, red light blinking. "Are you recording?" Tanya asked. "Does it matter?" Victor leaned forward. "Your staff. You don't get to ask questions. You get to fetch." He snapped his fingers twice, like calling a dog. "Bring bread. Bring water, and don't breathe near the table while you do it." Tanya brought the bread. She set the basket down carefully, making no eye contact. "No, no, no," Victor pushed the basket back. "Your hands touched it. I saw your hands touch the bread." "I used the tongs, sir." "I don't care. Get new bread. And wear gloves this time. I don't know where those fingers have been." He looked at his friends. You never know with these people. Could be fresh off a welfare line. The younger man zoomed in on Tanya's face. She didn't react. She went back to the kitchen, came out with new bread, latex gloves on both hands, set it down without a word. Better, Victor said. See, you can be trained. Nicky laughed so hard, wine came out of his nose. The third Friday, Victor changed tactics. He didn't insult her right away. He waited. Let her take the order. Let her serve the appetizers. Let her think maybe tonight was different. Then, halfway through the main course, he called her over. Stand there, he said, pointing at a spot between his booth and the next table. Right there. Don't move. Tanya stood. Gentlemen, Victor said, raising his glass, I want to make a toast. To diversity. The table laughed. Bellini's is finally catching up with the times. They've got themselves a real live one. He turned to Tanya. Tell me something. Back where you come from, and I don't mean Brooklyn, I mean wherever your people are actually from. Do they have restaurants? Or is it just, what, communal pots and dirt floors? Tanya said nothing. I'm asking you a question. I was born in Virginia, sir. Virginia. Victor repeated it like it tasted bad. Sure you were. And I was born in Rome. He waved her off. Get me another bottle, same wine, and take those gloves off. You look like you're about to perform surgery on my risotto. This was Victor's game. Each Friday he tested how far he could push. Each Friday, the line moved further. And each Friday, Tanya let it move, because the alternative was a sealed file ripped open, a cover blown, and a life erased for the second time. But there was another reason Victor kept coming back to Tanya. Inside Victor Ashton's head, the math was simple. He'd spent 2 years and $300,000 hunting a ghost, the informant who'd put his brother away. Every investigator, every contact, every favor called in had produced nothing. The federal seal on the case was airtight, and the frustration was eating him from the inside. He couldn't hurt the ghost, so he hurt whoever was in front of him. Tanya was perfect. She was black, she was quiet, and she took it. Every insult he landed on her was a pressure valve. Every humiliation he staged in front of his men reinforced his authority, proof that Victor Ashton was still the one in control, even if he couldn't find the one person who'd destroyed his family. He didn't see her as a threat. He didn't see her as a person. That was his first mistake. The fourth Friday was the worst. Victor's mood was darker. A shipment had gone wrong. Money was missing. He'd fired 2 men that morning, one of them with a broken jaw. By the time he sat down at Bellini's, he was a lit fuse looking for a room. Tanya brought the wine. He drank half the glass and set it down hard enough to crack the stem. You know what I hate? He said, not looking at her. I hate that my brother is in a federal box right now because some rat, some nobody, wore a wire and smiled at our table for a year. You know what that feels like? Tanya's pulse jumped. She kept her face empty. It feels like finding a cockroach in your bed. You don't just kill it, you burn the sheets. He looked up at her, really looked. What are you staring at? Nothing, sir. Then stop standing there like a statue and do your job. Or do I need to teach you that too? Nicky pulled Tanya's apron string loose. It fell open. The table erupted. Look at that, Victor said. She doesn't even flinch. Cold-blooded. Maybe she is a reptile. Tanya retied her apron, hands steady, fingers precise. The same fingers that had disarmed a man twice her size in a DEA training facility 6 years ago. Elena was waiting in the kitchen, eyes red. Why do you let him do this? Because it doesn't matter. It does matter, Tanya. He's treating you like I know what he's treating me like. Tanya's voice dropped, flat, controlled. And one day, it'll matter, but not today. Elena stared at her. Sometimes you scare me more than he does. Tanya didn't answer. She picked up the next tray and walked back out. Friday number 5 was already on the calendar, and Victor Ashton was already planning something bigger. A private party, a full buyout of the restaurant for the night, and a very specific request to Marco. Make sure the black girl is working. She's my entertainment. Marco called Tanya that Wednesday. You don't have to come on Friday. I can schedule someone else. The line went quiet for 3 seconds. No, Tanya said. I'll be there. Wednesday night, Brooklyn apartment. 1 lamp on. Tanya sat on the edge of her bed, phone in hand. Agent Dawson's number glowed on the screen. 1 call and she could be gone by morning. New name, new city, new ghost. She didn't dial. Instead, she stood up, pushed the coffee table against the wall, and started drilling. Palm strike, elbow, knee, Krav Maga combinations she could do blindfolded, because she had during certification. Her body moved before her mind caught up. Muscle memory doesn't forget. It just waits. She stopped, breathing hard, hands open, staring at the heavy bag swinging in the silence. 4 Fridays. 4 rounds of a man peeling her dignity away in public, 1 insult at a time, while a room full of people watched and said nothing. She could take it. She had taken it. That was the mission. Stay invisible, stay small, stay alive. But Friday number 5 wasn't going to be another round. Victor had bought the whole restaurant. He'd requested her by name. He wasn't just bullying a waitress anymore. He was building a stage, and something in Tanya's chest, something she'd buried under 2 years of silence and service, shifted. Not anger, colder than anger. Readiness. Friday, 8 p.m. Bellini's was closed to the public. Victor had booked the entire restaurant. 23 guests, his inner circle, associates, women who dressed like they were paid to be seen. The tables had been rearranged into a horseshoe, champagne on every surface, music low. The mood was celebration, but the energy underneath was something else, something Victor had designed. He'd told Marco to keep 3 staff, a bartender, a busboy, and Tanya. She stays, he'd said on the phone, or I find another restaurant, and another landlord. Marco didn't argue. Tanya arrived in her uniform, apron tied, hair pulled back. She scanned the room the way she always did. Exits, sightlines, bodies. Old habit. Tonight it felt less like a habit and more like a necessity. Victor saw her and clapped once. There she is, the guest of honor. Laughter rippled through the horseshoe. Come here. He waved her to the center of the room. Stand right there. I want everyone to see you. Tanya walked to the spot, stood still, tray at her side. Ladies and gentlemen, Victor said, standing with his glass raised. Tonight we celebrate. Good wine, good company, and a little live entertainment. He gestured at Tanya. This is my favorite waitress. She doesn't talk back. She doesn't cry. She just stands there and takes it, like a good little Victor. One of the women, blonde, mid-30s, shifted in her seat. Maybe don't what? She works for me. This whole block works for me. He turned back to Tanya. Right? Tanya said nothing. See? Perfect employee. He circled her slowly. You know, I've had dogs with more personality. At least they wag their tails. He stopped behind her. Tell you what, bark for me. Just once, and I'll double your tip tonight. Someone at the far table covered their mouth. Nobody else moved. No? Too proud? Victor came back around to face her. Funny thing about pride, Your people talk about it a lot. Marches, speeches, fists in the air. He leaned close. But here you are, serving my food in my restaurant, on my street. So where's all that pride now? Tanya's fingers tightened around the tray. 1 second. Then they relaxed. So tonight, we're going to find out if there's anything behind those eyes. He stopped 1 foot away. I'm going to give you a chance nobody in your world ever gets. Say one thing to me. Anything. No consequences. Go ahead. The room went quiet. Tanya looked at him. Seconds stretched. No? Victor laughed. Nothing? Not even a, you should let me walk away. 5 words. Quiet. Flat. The way someone reads a warning label. Victor blinked. Then his face twisted. The laughter left his eyes. What did you just say to me? I said you should let me walk away. The room held its breath. Victor set his glass down on the nearest table. Slowly. Deliberately. Then he grabbed Tanya's apron with his left hand and yanked her forward. His right hand came up, open palm, and he slapped her across the face. The sound cracked through the restaurant like a gunshot. Tanya's head turned with the impact. A thin line of blood appeared at the corner of her lip. The room was frozen. Someone gasped. Someone else reached for their phone. Victor leaned in close. Think you're tough? Prove. He never finished the word. Tanya's left hand came up under his grip and broke it. A wrist release so fast that Victor's fingers were still curled around the air when his arm twisted sideways. Her right elbow drove into his solar plexus. His breath left his body in one ugly sound. Before he could fold, her left palm struck his nose. Not full force, controlled, precise, enough to blind him with tears and pain. She swept his right leg. He hit the marble floor back first. The impact rattled the silverware on every table. 3 seconds, maybe 4. Victor Ashton lay on the floor of his own restaurant, blood streaming from his nose, gasping like a landed fish. The room erupted. Nicky was first. He charged from the booth, 230 pounds moving fast. Tanya didn't retreat. She sidestepped at the last second, grabbed his wrist, and used his momentum to send him headfirst into the dessert cart. Glass shattered. Tiramisu hit the wall. A second man, shorter, stockier, a knife already in his hand, came from the left. Tanya kicked the blade out of his grip before he could swing. It spun across the floor and slid under a booth. She closed the distance in 1 step, elbow to the jaw. He dropped like his strings were cut. The third man made it halfway across the room before he stopped. He looked at Victor on the floor. He looked at Nicky tangled in the cart. He looked at the second man unconscious by the booth. Then he looked at Tanya, standing in the center of the horseshoe, breathing steady, hands open at her sides, not a single bead of sweat on her forehead. He sat back down. The other 2 never stood up. Silence. Total, absolute silence. The kind that lives in the space after an explosion. Then a sound. Small at first. A phone. Then another. Then 6. Every guest who'd been watching was now recording. The blonde woman who'd tried to stop Victor had captured the entire sequence, from the slap to the last man sitting down. 41 seconds of footage. She uploaded it before the ambulance arrived. Tanya untied her apron, folded it once, set it on the nearest table. She looked at Marco, who stood behind the bar with his mouth open and both hands flat on the counter. I quit, she said. She walked out of Bellini's and didn't look back. By midnight, the video had a name, #Waitress Takedown. By 2 a.m., it had 4 million views. By sunrise, 11 million. Every major outlet picked it up. CNN, Fox, TMZ. The New York Post ran the headline, "Mystery Waitress Floors Mafia-Linked Boss in 8 Seconds." Comment sections exploded. Who is she? That's not waitress training. She moved like military. Someone find this woman. Nobody could. Because Tanya Brooks didn't exist on any public database. No social media, no LinkedIn, no photos older than 2 years. She was a ghost. And ghosts don't leave footprints. But Victor Ashton was already making phone calls from the back of an ambulance, blood still drying on his collar. Find out who she really is. I want a name, a real name, and I want it by Monday. The hunt had begun. And Victor had no idea he was chasing the same ghost he'd been looking for all along. Victor Ashton held a press conference 3 days later. He stood on the courthouse steps in a Navy suit, left arm in a sling he didn't need, bandage across his nose. 2 lawyers flanked him, 6 cameras pointed at his face. I was assaulted, he said, voice cracking, rehearsed. In my favorite restaurant, by a woman I'd never met before. Unprovoked, violent. I'm lucky to be alive. Reporters shouted questions. Victor's lead attorney, Harrison Coul, silver hair, $3,000 shoes, stepped to the microphone. My client is filing criminal assault charges and a civil suit against the individual known as Tanya Brooks. The viral video circulating online has been selectively edited to paint my client as the aggressor. The full context tells a very different story. It didn't. But the full context wasn't what people saw first. Victor's team had already released their own edit, a 30-second clip that started after the slap, showing only Tanya's attack. No build-up, no insults, no bark for me. Just a black woman destroying a white man in a suit while bystanders screamed. The narrative flipped in 48 hours. Fox News ran a segment, Waitress or Weapon, the dangerous woman behind the viral video. A retired MMA commentator analyzed her technique frame by frame. That's not self-defense, that's tactical combat training. Whoever this woman is, she's done this before. Twitter split down the middle. Hashtag Justice for Victor started trending, alongside hashtag Waitress Hero. The comment sections turned into war zones. She's a thug. He deserved it. She should be in prison. She should get a medal. Tanya watched it all from her Brooklyn apartment, with the blinds drawn. Her phone rang. Blocked number. She answered anyway. It's Dawson. Agent Phil Dawson, her former handler. The man who'd built her cover, moved her into WITSEC, and checked in every 90 days like clockwork. Your face is on every screen in America, Tanya. I know. We can extract you tonight. New identity, new city. You'd be in Nebraska by morning. And what happens to the charges? Silence. That's what I thought, Tanya said. I run, and Victor wins. He gets to be the victim. I disappear again, and nothing changes. If you stay, your cover is gone. WITSEC can't protect someone who's on CNN. Then I guess I'm not in WITSEC anymore. She hung up, sat in the dark, counted the options the way she used to count exits. Fast, clinical, honest. There weren't many. The next morning, she turned herself in. Mugshot, fingerprints, bail set at $50,000. A legal aid lawyer named Denise Crawford showed up within the hour, pro bono, no explanation, just a sharp suit and a sharper jaw. I saw the full video, Denise said through the glass. The real one. You were assaulted first. This is self-defense, and I'm going to prove it. Meanwhile, Victor was digging. Rex Thornton, private investigator, ex-NYPD. The kind of man who could find a needle in a burning haystack, had been working Tanya's background for 5 days. Everything about her was clean. Too clean. No social media, no tax returns before 2024, no college records, no family, no ex-boyfriends, Nothing, Thornton told Victor over the phone. This woman appeared out of thin air 2 years ago. Victor sat up. 2 years ago. Exactly. The math hit him like the marble floor had. 2 years. The same amount of time since Dominic went away. The same window. The same disappearing act, but in reverse. Get me her prints, Victor said, from Bellini's. She touched glasses every night for 19 months. Get me one clean print. Thornton got it from a coffee mug in the break room. Marco hadn't cleaned out her locker yet. The print went through 3 databases before it hit. Not a criminal record. Not a DMV file. A sealed federal employee record that Thornton's contact at a private security firm should never have been able to access. But money opens doors that law keeps shut. The name it came back was Tiana Blackwell, DEA, Undercover Division, case file, Operation Nightfall, the investigation that dismantled the Ashton narcotics network and put Dominic Ashton in federal prison. Thornton called Victor at 11 p.m. You're not going to believe this. Try me. The waitress, the woman who's been serving your wine for almost 2 years. She's the one. She's the ghost. The line went dead for 10 seconds. When Victor spoke again, his voice was something Thornton had never heard before. Not anger, not a shock. Something beneath both. Something that sounded like the foundations of a building starting to crack. She was right there, serving me pasta, looking at my face every Friday night and smiling, for 2 years. And she knew. She knew who I was. She knew what I did to find her. She watched me spend a fortune chasing a shadow, and she was pouring my wine. He threw his phone across the room. It hit the wall and shattered. Nikki handed him another one. What do you want me to do? Thornton asked again. Everything. I want her real name on every news desk in this city by morning. I want every outlet to know that America's hero waitress was a federal plant who destroyed a family and hid in plain sight. I want her finished. By dawn, the story broke. Exclusive. Viral waitress was undercover DEA agent who sent boss's brother to prison. The headline ran on every platform simultaneously. Someone had coordinated it, paid for it more likely. The public reaction was instant and brutal. She was a Fed this whole time? This was a setup from the start. She planned the whole thing. No wonder she could fight. She's government trained. Free Victor Ashton. We got played. Hashtag waitress hero died overnight. Hashtag waitress liar replaced it. Petition pages popped up demanding her arrest. Strangers doxed her Brooklyn address. Someone spray-painted "rat" on her apartment door before noon. Elena texted once. Was any of it real? Friendship? The late-night talks? Or was I just part of your cover too? Tanya typed 3 different responses, deleted all of them, sent nothing. Denise Crawford called that afternoon. The jury pool just got poisoned. Every potential juror in Manhattan has seen the headlines. Victor's team is pushing for a fast trial date while public opinion is against you. How fast? 5 days. Tanya sat on her bed. The same bed where she'd decided to stay. The apartment was quiet. No heavy bag. She'd taken it down the day after the arrest. No phone calls from Dawson. No texts from Elena. Just the sound of traffic outside and the word rat she could still see through the peephole. Everything she'd built in 2 years, the name, the job, the one friendship that felt almost real, was gone. Stripped. Like someone had peeled her life off a wall and left bare plaster underneath. And in 5 days, she'd walk into a courtroom and face the brother of the man she'd put away, with a city that now hated her, watching every move. The courtroom was full before 9 a.m., every seat taken. Press in the back row, cameras banned, but phones everywhere. Sketch artists lined the wall. Outside, two crowds chanted at each other across a police barricade. Hashtag Waitress liar on one side. A smaller group holding hashtag self-defense is not a crime on the other. Tanya walked in through a side door. No handcuffs. Dark blazer. Hair pulled back the same way she wore it at Bellini's. She sat beside Denise Crawford and folded her hands on the table. She didn't look at Victor. Victor sat 15 feet away, sling still on, bandage reduced to a strip of white tape. Harrison Coul beside him, legal pad already full. Victor made a point of staring at Tanya the entire time. She never turned. The judge, Honorable Ruth Kavanaugh, 63, known for short tempers and long sentences, called the room to order. Harrison Coul went first. Your Honor, the defendant is not a waitress. She is a highly trained federal agent with expertise in close combat, tactical infiltration, and lethal force. She spent over a year embedded in the Ashton family under a false identity. She is a professional deceiver. And on the night in question, she used her government training to brutally assault an unarmed civilian in a public restaurant. He paused. Let it breathe. This was not self-defense. This was a weapon deployed against a man who had no idea what he was dealing with. My client never stood a chance. Murmurs in the gallery. Victor dabbed his eye with a tissue. Denise Crawford stood slowly. She buttoned her jacket, took 3 steps toward the jury. An unarmed civilian, she repeated. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what this unarmed civilian did for 5 consecutive Friday nights before that video started. She held up a USB drive. I have the full, unedited security footage from Bellini's restaurant. All 5 Fridays, every camera angle, every minute. Provided to me by the restaurant's manager, Marco Sullivan, who preserved the recordings at personal risk. Harrison Coul's pen stopped moving. Denise plugged the drive into the courtroom's display system. The screen lit up. Friday 1, Victor throwing the menu at Tanya's chest, telling her to pick it up. You're lucky to be in this room. Friday 2, Victor making her wear latex gloves. You can be trained. Friday 3, Victor circling her in front of 20 people. Do they have restaurants, or is it just communal pots and dirt floors? Friday 4, Nikki pulling her apron loose. Victor, she doesn't even flinch. Maybe she is a reptile. Friday 5, the full sequence. Victor calling her to the center. Bark for me. The speech about pride, the grab, the slap, the blood on her lip. And only then, Tanya's response. The jury watched all of it. Some looked away during the slap. One woman in the front row pressed her hand to her mouth. A man in the back closed his eyes and shook his head. The courtroom was silent when the footage ended. Denise turned to the jury. 5 weeks. 5 weeks of racial abuse, public humiliation, and physical assault, documented on camera. And she took it. Every single time. She took it because walking away was the only thing keeping her safe. Until the night he slapped her in front of 23 witnesses and dared her to fight back. She pointed at Victor. That is not a victim. That is a man who spent 5 weeks building up to a moment he thought would break her. And when it didn't break her, when she finally defended herself, he called a lawyer. Harrison Coul objected. Sustained. But the damage was done. Denise called her first witness, Dr. Angela Simmons, professor of constitutional law at Columbia University, who had been dining at Bellini's on the 5th Friday. I saw everything, Dr. Simmons said. He slapped her, hard. Her lip was bleeding. His men surrounded her. She had no exit and no help. What she did next was the textbook definition of proportional self-defense. She neutralized the threat and walked out. She didn't chase anyone. She didn't escalate. She left. In your expert opinion, Dr. Simmons, was this self-defense? Without question. Then Denise played her final card. Your Honor, I'd like to introduce Exhibit D, documents obtained through a federal subpoena issued this morning by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. Harrison Coul stood up. Objection. We've had no disclosure of... These documents were sealed until 6 a.m. today, Your Honor. The federal government authorized their release in connection with an active investigation. Judge Kavanaugh looked at the file. Her eyebrows rose. She allowed it. Denise laid it out. Rex Thornton, the private investigator Victor hired, had been intercepted by DEA agents 3 days earlier. Faced with federal obstruction charges for accessing sealed WITSEC records, Thornton cooperated fully. He turned over everything, every communication, every payment, every instruction Victor had given him, including a text message sent at 1:47 a.m. on the night Victor discovered Tanya's real identity. The message read, "I don't care how. Make her disappear. Permanently." The courtroom erupted. Victor shot to his feet. "That's out of context. I didn't mean... She destroyed my family. She put my brother in..." "I said, sit down." Victor's lawyers pulled him into his chair. His face was red. His hands were shaking. The sling had slipped off one shoulder, and nobody fixed it. Denise faced the jury one final time. My client didn't seek this fight. She didn't seek this courtroom. She spent 2 years serving pasta to the brother of the man she helped convict, not out of vengeance, but because she wanted peace. She wanted to be invisible. Victor Ashton took that from her. He took her dignity. He took her safety. He took her cover. And when he found out who she really was, his first instinct wasn't fear. It wasn't a reflection. It was a kill order. She let the silence hold for 5 seconds. Tanya Brooks is not a weapon. She is a woman who was backed into a corner by a man who thought she was nothing. She proved him wrong. That's not assault. That's survival. The jury deliberated for 2 hours and 14 minutes. The verdict? Not guilty. Unanimous. The smaller crowd outside erupted. Inside, Victor sat frozen. Harrison Coul whispered something in his ear. Victor didn't respond. Federal marshals entered through the side door, 2 of them. They walked directly to Victor's table. Victor Ashton, you are under arrest. Drug trafficking, witness intimidation, conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. They cuffed him at the defense table. His own lawyers stepped back. As they walked him past Tanya, he stopped, leaned close, whispered, "This isn't over." Tanya looked at him. Calm, level. The same eyes that had held his stare across a restaurant floor. It was over 2 years ago. You just didn't know it yet. Victor was let out. The courtroom doors closed behind him. Tanya sat still for a long moment. Then Denise touched her shoulder. It's done. Tanya nodded, but she didn't smile. People who've lived in the dark that long don't celebrate when the light comes on. They just blink. Victor Ashton was sentenced on a Tuesday, federal court, Southern District of New York. The same building where his brother Dominic had stood 4 years earlier. Same hallway, same fluorescent lights. Different Ashton. The charges stuck like concrete. Drug trafficking. The DEA had traced his revived pipeline through 6 states. Witness intimidation. Thornton's testimony laid it all out. Text messages, payments, instructions. Conspiracy to commit murder. 1 text, 7 words. Life sentence eligible. Victor got 32 years. No parole. When the judge read the sentence, Victor didn't react. He just stared at the table, the way men do when they realize the ground they've been standing on was never solid. Nikki got 12 years. 2 other associates took plea deals. Harris and Coul quietly withdrew from the case and stopped returning calls from reporters. The Ashton Empire. 2 generations of intimidation, narcotics, and territory, built one threatened landlord at a time, collapsed in less than a month. Properties seized, accounts frozen, businesses shuttered. The block around Bellini's went quiet for the first time in decades. The media turned on a dime. The same outlets that had called Tanya a liar now ran features with titles like The Woman Who Took Down 2 Ashtons and Agent Tiana Blackwell, America's Most Unlikely Hero. Talking heads who had demanded her arrest were suddenly praising her courage. Opinion columns dissected the 5 Fridays of abuse and asked why no one in that restaurant had intervened. Tanya didn't do interviews, not one. Every network offered. She declined them all. 3 weeks after the trial, Elena showed up at Tanya's apartment. She stood in the hallway. The spray-painted rat had been scrubbed off, but the shadow of it still showed, and knocked twice. Tanya opened the door. They looked at each other for a long time. "I'm sorry," Elena said. Her eyes were red. "I should have... You had every right to doubt me." "No. I had every right to trust you. You were the only person in that restaurant who ever stood between me and him. I should have remembered that before I sent that text." They sat in the kitchen, drank coffee. Elena asked questions, real ones, not accusations. Tanya answered what she could. Some things were still sealed. Some things she just wasn't ready to say out loud. But it was the first real conversation she'd had in weeks, and it mattered more than the verdict. Agent Dawson came by on a Thursday. No phone call first, just a knock. He sat at the same kitchen table and placed a folder between them. "The Bureau wants you back. New division. No undercover. Supervisory role. Training the next generation." Tanya looked at the folder, didn't open it. "I spent 14 months pretending to be someone else inside Dominic's circle, then 2 years pretending to be someone else outside of it. I've been a ghost for almost 4 years, Phil." She pushed the folder back. "I'm done disappearing." Dawson nodded. He didn't argue. He picked up the folder, stood, and paused at the door. "For what it's worth, you were the best agent I ever ran. And I'm not just saying that because you took down 2 crime bosses. I'm saying it because you did it and stayed human." He left. Tanya sat alone for a while. Then she made a phone call. 6 weeks later, a community center in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn opened a new program. Free self-defense classes for women, specifically women of color, specifically those who'd been told their whole lives to stay quiet, stay small, stay out of the way. The instructor was a woman named Tanya Brooks, not Tiana Blackwell. She'd kept the name, the one she'd chosen, the one that meant starting over. The first class had 14 women. By the 3rd week, there were 40. By the 2nd month, a waiting list. Marco Sullivan kept a table at Bellini's permanently reserved. A small brass plate on the edge read, "Tanya's table, reserved." No one ever sat there. But every Friday night, he set it with a clean cloth napkin, a single glass, and a candle. His way of saying what he never said out loud. Hashtag Don't Judge the Uniform trended one last time the day the program launched. This time, nobody argued in the comments. They just shared the story. And on the first night of class, Tanya stood in front of 14 women. Young, nervous. Most of them told their entire lives that strength wasn't for people who looked like them. And said 7 words. The most dangerous weapon is being underestimated. There's something about this story that keeps me up at night. Not the fight, not the courtroom, Not even the 5 Fridays of abuse caught on camera for the whole world to see. It's the moment in between. The 19 months before any of it happened. Tanya Brooks, a woman trained to disarm men twice her size, a woman who'd infiltrated one of the most dangerous crime families on the East Coast and walked out alive, spending her nights pouring wine for the brother of the man she put away, smiling, serving, invisible. She could have left. She could have called Dawson at any point and been on a plane by sunrise. New name, new city, new silence. But she stayed. Not because she wanted revenge. Not because she was waiting for the right moment. She stayed because she was tired of running. Tired of being someone else. Tired of the ghost. And the cruelest irony? The man who spent 2 years and $300,000 hunting for her was sitting 10 feet away the entire time, too blinded by his own arrogance to see what was right in front of him. Victor Ashton didn't lose because Tanya was stronger. He lost because he never considered, not once, not for a single second, that the black woman in the apron could be anything more than what he decided she was. That's not just a mistake. That's a disease. And it's the same disease that made every person in that restaurant look away when he threw a menu at her chest. The same disease that made a news anchor call her a weapon before anyone asked what she'd endured. The same disease that turned a victim into a villain in 48 hours because the world couldn't handle the idea that a waitress could take down a king. But she did. And somewhere in a federal prison in Pennsylvania, Dominic Ashton heard the news. His little brother, the one who was supposed to hold the empire together, was in a cell now too. Same building, different wing, put there by the same woman. The guard said Dominic didn't speak for 3 days after he found out, just sat on his bunk and stared at the wall. Maybe he was angry, maybe he was ashamed, or maybe, just maybe, some small, honest part of him understood that they'd earned this. Both of them. Every bit of it. Tanya Brooks doesn't go by Tiana Blackwell anymore. She doesn't go by Agent anything. She's just Tanya, the woman who teaches self-defense in a Brooklyn community center on Tuesday and Thursday nights. The woman who buys coffee from the same bodega every morning and tips $2 every time. The woman who still scans exits when she walks into a room, not because she's afraid, but because some habits are just part of who you are. She doesn't talk about the Ashtons. She doesn't talk about the video. When a student asks her about it, and they always do eventually, she says the same thing every time. That night wasn't about fighting. It was about deciding I was done being invisible. And that's the thing about people like Tanya. They don't announce themselves. They don't wear signs. They don't perform their strength for applause. They carry it quietly, like a loaded weapon with the safety on, until the moment someone is foolish enough to push them past the line. So the next time you're in a restaurant, or a store, or a waiting room, and you see someone behind a counter or wearing a uniform, look a little closer. Not at what they're doing, at what they're carrying. Because the most dangerous person in any room is the one nobody's watching. If this story hit you different, drop a comment. Tell me this, what would you have done on that first Friday night? Would you have said something? Or would you have looked away like everyone else? Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Hit that bell, because we've got more stories like this one coming. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's next.
19 months, she put his wife to his insults, smite, and the man who spent $300,000 hunting for her was sitting 10 feet away and never once looked up. That's what gets me about Tina's story. Victor didn't lose because he was farther or stronger. He lost because he looked at a black woman in upfront and decided she was nothing. Done. Case closed. 5 Fridays. He tore her apart, threw a menu at her chest, made her wear clothes to touch red, told her to park like a dog, and every person in that restaurant watched it happen and started their place. But Tina wasn't waiting for a hero. She was carrying something none of them could see. And when Victor finally crossed the line, it took 4 seconds to prove that the most dangerous person in the room was the one nobody bothered to look at. Now, be real with me. Have you ever been in a room where someone was being torn apart and everybody just looked away? A coworker, a stranger on the bus, maybe it was you. What did you do? Did you speak up? Or did you do what whole restaurant did? Pretend you didn't see it? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. If this story hit different, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe, hit the bell. Every week we bring you stories the world tries to bury. Remember, the most dangerous weapon is being underestimated.